Hi kids, I'm going to show you how to find the main idea and details in a story using Alice the Fairy by David Shannon as an example. So you're going to get a sheet that looks like this, and what do we always say? Name on your paper, first thing. Where does it go? At the top. So we're going to write my name right here, Ms. Hurst. And since I don't have a camera stand, I do apologize. This video is probably going to be pretty shaky. So now that we have seen the story Alice the Fairy, at least I hope you have. If you haven't yet, go back and listen to the story. We have to find the main idea. And the main idea is the big idea, the most important part of the story. What is this story mostly about? And it's usually written as a sentence. So with Alice the Fairy, this story was about a little girl who pretended to be a fairy, and she did all sorts of crazy things to kind of pretend that she was actually being a fairy. So the main idea of Alice the Fairy is that Alice likes to pretend that she is a fairy. So that's what I would write here in this box. Alice pretends she's, and there's a contraction, she and is put together, a fairy. Okay, so that's what the story is mostly about. Then we go to the details, and there are many more details in the story than main ideas. There's usually only one or two main ideas. So with details, these things are going to talk about how Alice pretends she's a fairy. They're showing why this is the main idea. Why is this the most important sentence about the story? So for my details, I will probably choose different things that Alice does to pretend she's a fairy. Like I know at one point in this story, she turns her dad into a horse. And she does that just by climbing on his back as he crawls across the floor. She turns her dad into a horse. We also know that she can make herself disappear. By turning off the lights. And I apologize for my bad handwriting. It's kind of tricky trying to write and film a video at the same time. So other things that Alice does, and if you ever get stuck and you can't think of any details or you cannot think of the main idea, definitely go back and reread the story or look through and try to find some of the details. So I'm kind of forgetting now what some of the other details were. So I'm going to go back into our story, Alice the Fairy, and try to find a couple of different things she does to be a fairy. So there's Dad turning into a horse, right? So Mom had made cookies for Dad, and Alice turned them into her cookies by eating them all. So that is one thing I'm going to add for a detail. Alice made the cookies hers by eating them. And in that way, she was pretending she's a fairy. So each detail should be evidence or proof of what the main idea is. It should support it. So she eats the cookies. That is one way she pretends to be a fairy. Now let's go back to our story and try to find another idea to show how Alice is a fairy. Lots of good ideas here. Here's where she makes herself disappear by turning off the lights. I'm going to choose this one, I think. This is where Alice uses fairy dust to turn oatmeal into cake. And really, we can see it's coming from a sugar pot. So Alice is just putting sugar on her oatmeal and making it taste like cake. So we're going to write in the last detail box, Alice uses fairy dust, and then I'm going to use parentheses, sugar. This is hard to write. So parentheses kind of tell a little bit about what came before it. So she uses fairy dust or sugar to turn oatmeal Okay. So again, our main idea is, what is the story mostly about? Well, in our story, Alice the Fairy, we know that this story is mostly about how Alice pretends she's a fairy. Again, the main idea is usually a sentence. Then the details give more information about the main idea. So how does Alice pretend she's a fairy? Well, she turns her dad into a horse. She makes herself disappear by turning off the lights. Alice made the cookies hers by eating them. And Alice uses fairy dust or sugar to turn oatmeal into cake. So this is how you will do your worksheet for your assignment today. Good luck, everybody.